What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Seahawks Now, your home for all things daily Seahawks news, updates, and rumors. Today we're discussing Brandon Sherf and why I still think the Seahawks could upgrade their offensive line by taking a chance on the veteran guard. Plus, we talk about an article that thinks the Seahawks will be drafting another quarterback in 2026. Finally, we asked the question, where does the Seattle Seahawks offensive line stack up against the rest in the NFL? All that and more right here today on Seahawks Now. But first, hit the bell for notifications if you like what you see. Hit this like button down below to make sure you support the channel, and hit the subscribe button so you never miss another breaking news alert. With that all being said, let's get into things. First off, Brandon Sherf. Now we have more discussions in the Seahawks community about Brandon Sherf. Just 2 days ago, Michael Bumpus was talking on 710 Seattle Sports about how he thinks Sherf is the best O-line target for the Seahawks in 2025. Writing Cameron Van Til, heading into the 2025 season, one of the biggest questions for the Seahawks is whether they did enough to address their struggling offensive line. They spent their first-round draft pick on North Dakota State's Gray Zabel, who's expected to be their starting left guard. They also hired a new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, whose Shanahan-style scheme might put the O-line in a better position for success. They also brought in veteran offensive line coach John Benton, who's been coaching in the NFL for the past 2 decades. But there are still legitimate questions still lingering at both center and right guard. Now, FTN Fantasy's Aaron Schatz recently suggested the Seahawks should sign 5-time Pro Bowler Brandon Sherf to play right guard, and Michael Bumpus has another idea. He goes with veteran guard Will Hernandez, who has made 91 starts over his 7-year career. Both Hernandez and Sherf are among ESPN's top 17 remaining free agents. Here's what Bumpus has to say, quote, Hernandez has been banged up a little bit, but at this point of the offseason, you're still looking for guys to help with the offensive line. But I mentioned this guy earlier in the whole process, and I'll mention his name again. Will Hernandez is still available. He's still out there. Now, here's what I'll say. I kind of want to compare the stats between Hernandez and Sherf. Now, so this is just me going off the cuff here. Hernandez last year had an approximate value of 2. However, he only played 5 games. In 2023, at the age of 28, he had his best season of his career with an approximate value of 8 while starting 17 of 17 games for the Arizona Cardinals. Played for the Giants before that. He had a good rookie season in 2018, another good season in 2019, and then injuries started to affect him going forward. So if you're getting 2024 Hernandez, well, you're not getting much. You're getting a guy who's only played 5 games with an approximate value of 2. But if you're getting 2023 Hernandez, you're getting a legitimate starter at right guard for a pretty solid price. I don't think he's going to cost that much. On the other hand, let's look at the stats for Brandon Sherf. Brandon Sherf, another right guard, last year he had an approximate value of 6, and he started all 17 games. So that puts him about the similar level to Hernandez. If Hernandez had started every game, he would have also had an approximate value of about 6 or 7. 2023, he had an approximate value of 8 and another approximate value of 8 in 2022. Now, Sherf is definitely older. He's going to be 34 next year. Hernandez is only going to be 30. So if you want the youth, you go with Hernandez. However, Sherf definitely carries more experience. He's been an All-Pro. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler. On the other hand, Hernandez has never made a Pro Bowl. You want to know my take? Why don't we just sign both of them? I mean, I know that it might feel like a lot of offensive linemen to add to this line, but if you have an opportunity to add 2 good players, why not? Why not just add both of them to the offensive line? I think it would work. I actually think it would make a lot of sense for the Seahawks to sign Sherf and Hernandez. It would probably only cost you about $4 to $5 million each, and you have that money in your cap. You have cap space. Now, obviously, you guys know my ultimate preference would be to trade and then extend TJ Watt or Trey Hendrickson. But if that doesn't happen, let's try to upgrade somewhere else, the O-line. Between Sherf and Hernandez, I think one of them can be good. I think one of them can be capable. And I think that's all you need. All right, let's move on. We have an article talking about the Seahawks quarterback situation, asking the question if the Seahawks will they draft another quarterback next year. According to Seattle Seahawks on SI, writing Zach Roberts, after multiple QB moves, the Seahawks are predicted to make a shocking decision in 2026 NFL draft. That is, they will draft another QB. This is according to a mock draft from Pro Football Sports Network's Max Dorsey. One offseason after trading Smith, signing Darnold, and spending a 3rd-round pick on Milroe, Dorsey predicts that they will send another 2026 3rd-round pick on Pittsburgh quarterback Eli Holstein. This is a surprising move for many reasons. Taking a flyer on a QB in a given draft, even with established players at the position, isn't always a bad idea. Some of the smartest teams do it. Both a team with this many holes on offense should be taking a flyer on a third-round pick. If it was a fourth rounder or later, it might not be as glaring. Yeah, I'm not sure what this guy is thinking. He says the Seahawks next year are going to need to draft tight ends, linemen, and wide receivers. I think he's actually way off. I don't think the Seahawks are going to necessarily need to draft another tight end next year. They already have 2. I also am not sure if they need more linemen. They just drafted, they still have Charles Cross, especially not interior linemen, unless they want to draft a center. And wide receivers, we'll see. They may need to draft a receiver next year, but let's see how the wide receiver core does. Honestly, I think their most pressing need on offense next year is going to be running back, because I don't think Kenneth Walker comes back. So I'm kind of confused about this article, to be honest. And again, drafting a quarterback would not make a whole lot of sense. You just drafted Jalen Milroe. You just signed Sam Darnold. If you're in a position next year where you have to draft a quarterback, that means that 2025 was just simply a disaster. And in that case, I would spend a first-round pick on a quarterback. I would not take another flyer on another third-round guy like we did with Milroe. At some point, if you're going to swing for the fences, you have to actually swing for the fences. Settling for a third-round quarterback when there are great quarterbacks. Next year's going to be a deep quarterback class. Why would we want to settle for a third-round pick next year when we can probably get a first-round quarterback or a second-round quarterback if that is what comes to it? Hopefully that's not what it comes to, though. Hopefully Darnold and Milroe are good and capable, and we don't need to draft another quarterback next year. So I think this mock draft is pretty bad, but I'm also not a fan of the analysis saying that we need another tight end next year. I kind of hope we don't. Either way, let's move on to my last topic of the day. Where does the Seahawks offensive line rank among the NFL in 2025? Ultimately, guys, the O-line, it's definitely a work in progress, but I do think it's improved. Last year, we were about in the bottom 10 for offensive lines. It was bad last year. But I do think this year we can be better. I think this is an improved offensive line. Especially because we added Gray Zabel, who I think is going to be one of the better left guards in the league as a rookie. I think he can be a top 10 left guard as a rookie. I truly believe that. So right off the bat, we've improved. But can we get even better? Can we get ambitious here? I think if last year we were around the 25th O-line, I think adding Zabel helps push you into the top 20. But I'm worried about our depth at center. I'm still worried about our depth at right guard. This is why I'm pushing to sign Brandon Sherf. It's why I agree that Will Hernandez would also be a great move. Because at the end of the day, we need production from the offensive line. I think right now, I would put the Seahawks line right about the 20th or 19th, maybe even the 18th best in the league. So I think ultimately when it comes down to things, we are just slightly below average on the O-line. I don't think we're going to be nearly as bad as we were last year, especially if we can stay healthy. Because I do love Gray Zabel in there. I think he immediately makes an impact. But I don't think this is still a top 10 line. There's still work to be done. Thus, we should sign Brandon Sherf, sign Will Hernandez, and make this a truly elite team. With that being said, that's going to wrap this video up for today. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, it really helps us out, and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another breaking news alert. With that all being said, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and as always, until next time, go Seahawks.